All right, it's 2 minutes after the hour. Welcome, everyone. As for those of you that joined a little bit earlier, you heard me say that we are experiencing some technical difficulties. So my name is Kelly Zuccarelli, your moderator. I am the National New Construction Condo Manager for Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. And I have the dubious pleasure of not only moderating but running the show today, which should be interesting because I have someone that does this for me at Wells Fargo. So bear with us. I will do the best I can. We also, unfortunately, are going to be missing our ringleader, Kimberly Mackey. Unfortunately, Kimberly got a phone call this morning that her horse is very sick. So while you're praying and thinking about people, please think about Kimberly and her horse. As those of you know that have pets, you know they're very much like our children. So it's tough amongst everything else that's going on around us. So keep her in your thoughts. So part 6 today begins selling in a time of uncertainty, paving the road to recovery. I'm going to start by trying to switch to the next slide. There we go. I already told you, I'm Kelly Zuccarelli. I am your moderator. We may not have time for a lot of questions today, so I ask you to put your questions in the chat room. We will capture those and we will try to answer them as we go along. I also wanted to let you know that if you have any questions regarding mortgage, because it is quite evolutionary these days, and what I mean by that is the rules and regulations and who's still in the game are changing twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. So my email address is on the screen, kellyann.zuccarelli@wellsfargo.com. Feel free to shoot me an email and I promise I will get back to you. So let's start with our guest celebrity today. We have Melissa Moorman, co-founder of BDX, whose company focuses on digital transformation, joining us, and she'll be answering several of my questions that I hope will assist you. Then we have and there's Melissa's information. Then we have Carol Morgan, who is a staple on this program. Carol is the founder and president of Denim Marketing, a woman-owned agency specializing in strategic marketing, media relations, blogging, social media, promotions, advertising, and so much more. Carol is also the past PWB chair at NAHB and the past membership chair at NAHB, and currently serves as second vice chair of associates. Next, we have Leah Fellows. Leah is the founder and owner of Blue Gypsy Inc. It is a national online sales counselor training program. She's been working with builders across the country for the last several years, and she has 14 years of industry experience. Prior to that, Leah spent 13 years traveling around the world as a sailboat captain, dive instructor, and backpacker. She has a much better life than me, or I shouldn't say better, I should say far more exciting. I've had a wonderful life, exciting, raising 3 children and now 2 grandchildren. And then again, I told you all that unfortunately Kimberly can't be with us. Keep her in your thoughts and in your prayers. And let's jump right on into this first question. So we're looking ahead, and while we look ahead, we have to understand that buyer expectations will likely change. So Leah, I want to throw this question to you. How do you see buyer expectations changing from the real estate side? Because I can tell you on the mortgage side, they're changing rapidly.
Yeah, and it's a great question. And I think that some things that are of these things that we're doing right now are going to be permanent changes in the way a buyer shops for a new home. It's kind of like a buffet, right? Some people never thought twice about going to a buffet and touching all the utensils and countless strangers touching those things and the handles on the grocery store shopping carts. So now I don't know if people are ever going to be quite the same when it comes to these things. And the same thing goes for new home searching and when people are looking for that new home search. We've been moving down this road of virtual home buying for a long time now. You know, it's something that builders have protested, and I'm sure Melissa will be able to add to this because they've been kicking and screaming about this whole digital process, and kind of hoping it would go away. But we really know now this is such a major event in the timeline of the building industry now that it's not going to go away. So I think that instead of thinking about just, we hear the phrase customer journey so often. And, you know, if you Google customer journey, you'll see 14.5 million results. But really, it's more like a choose your own adventure now. I really see it as, remember those books where if you wanted to go one direction, you turn to page 43, and if you wanted to go to the other direction, you would turn to page 64. I think we need to make sure we have the tools that allow a buyer to choose where they want to go and who they want to interact with. That doesn't mean removing the human element. It just means re-examining what our role is in the buyer's adventure. And I think our goal should be more of a guide along the way, which means we still need to ask those questions to see where they want to go and why. But it's back to finding out where their pain points are and why they're searching for a new home so that they can move people along the journey, whether that's online sales counselors or salespeople. The secret is that all roads are going to lead, all the roads, just like in those books, lead back to unlocking the possibilities of visiting a community. But now it's whether or not they virtually want to visit or want to visit in person. And so we can't force one or the other. We need to be able to allow to have both of those possibilities available moving forward to clients along their home building search. So these give people options, and options give customers freedom. And when they have that freedom to choose, they're going to be much happier with their choices down the road. So, you know, I think that's really an important way to look at how buyers' expectations are going to be moving forward. They're going to want all these tools that we're presenting now to always be available and to be able to choose that journey. And I think if we let them choose their adventure while we're their guide along the way, we're all going to be much more successful.
Yes, so Leah, that's really interesting because, you know, our leadership at Wells Fargo has been preaching for the last several years that we have to work with our customers how they want to work with us. So there has to be that open-mindedness, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to jump a little bit. I'm going to likely show my age here. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I thought I was really cool because I was on Instagram. I could never figure out Snapchat. And now there's this whole new thing that has come out of COVID, and it's called TikTok. So is TikTok great for someone's brand, and should we be using this in new construction marketing?
Well, I think TikTok is really where things are going. It's definitely got a huge following, and there are builders there. Who knew? I did a lot of research and found 2 or 3 builders who are just absolutely blowing it out of the water on TikTok.
Smart kids.
Yeah, so Summit Homes just makes me laugh. Go check out their TikTok if you don't check out anyone else's. It is hilarious. Here you've got this guy dancing around the kitchen cabinets and shutting them with this fantastic music. And the second picture, I could not get it to screen capture in the right place. So what he's done is gone to the porta potty, stolen the roll of toilet paper, tucked it up his shirt, and is talking about social distancing and the lack of toilet paper. It is hilarious. So TikTok, for those of you guys who haven't jumped on it, and I've jumped on it, and it's the struggle bus for me to make these videos. I'm going to figure it out because I figure I'm not too old to figure out TikTok. But they're real short videos. Think of them like that snack size candy bar. Super short. You know, YouTube's the full size candy bar. TikTok's that little teeny one. Teenagers love it. And brands are flocking to it too. Chipotle's on there, Nike, Skittles, Pepsi, Universal Pictures. Lots of brands are flocking to it. Now, I think the challenge for TikTok and for those of us who are agencies is going to be, it is impossible for me. I'm not going to be able to run around and go visit my client in San Francisco and shoot a video and load it to them for TikTok. So, and they may not want to either. So I think one way that we can use it in our industry is get agents. Maybe agents will shoot these videos, or maybe home buyers will shoot them. Hold a contest, ask them to shoot a video, ask them to tag the home builder, then the home builder can then post it to their TikTok account. So I think there's some fun we can have in it. Cadillac Homes, and that's spelled Kadilak, Cadillac Homes in Burlington, Massachusetts, has almost 6,000 followers on their TikTok and over 130,000 likes on their videos. So there are builders on there doing it and doing it well. Now, it tends to be the smaller custom home builders that are using it, not the big builders. But I think there's an opportunity there. Even when I was searching home builders on TikTok, I searched it on Google. It says there's 10.1 million views for the tag home builder videos on TikTok, which is crazy. Now, I will tell you, there's lots of DIYers on there tagging things as home builder. It is hilarious. You guys should go check it out. It is worth launching an account just for the laugh fest you're going to have of what they suggest. The other interesting thing about TikTok that makes me think maybe this is possible for us in this industry, 60% of the people on there are female, our buyers, right? We all know women buy houses. And the biggest age group, obviously, though, is the 18 to 24-year-olds. And they're not quite buying yet, but they're 42%. The 13 to 17-year-olds are 27%. We all know that 42 and 27, even if you don't like math, that does not equal 100. So there's 30-something% of users on there that are older than 24. So guess what? Some of our buyers are on this site, right? So I think it's something, worth looking at. They say in the US that the buyers, that the 13 to 26-year-olds who may or may not be buyers, some of them are as likely to use TikTok as Facebook. So I just thought it would be fun to talk about. TikTok has absolutely exploded during COVID. It's been hot. It's been one of the leading, fastest apps, and it's because of all of its use in other places. I mean, there are a lot of people in the US on it, but there's far, far more in Asia and other countries. But it's something that if you want to just do something fun while we're all still sheltering at home, unless you're in Georgia, I can go get all this haircut starting today. So in Georgia, we can go bowling, get our haircut, and get a tattoo starting today. Aren't you sad you don't live in Georgia with me? But check out TikTok, and I'm on there as Carol L. Morgan. So it's double L because I couldn't just be Carol Morgan. Apparently somebody else is me already on the side. But let me know if you are on TikTok and you're a builder or you're doing something fun with it with your brand, please reach out to me and let me know, or put in the comments.
That's great. Thanks, Carol. A little bit of an education there for me. So I will check it out this weekend, but I'll have to have one of my younger people help me figure it out. So you heard me mention the social media that I flock to. LinkedIn, that's one that many of us use in the industry. So what's new and exciting on LinkedIn? Is it the same old, or are there some enhancements that are going on?
LinkedIn has definitely upped their game. I don't know how many of their enhancements are related to coronavirus, but I just grabbed my page because it was the easiest to grab, and I thought I could show you some things real quick or talk you through that. So on the top right where you see admin tools, that drop down has lots of things underneath it. So check that out on your page. I think that's really cool what they've added. So most of the functionality I'm going to talk about is added there. But the thing I like the most about what they've added is you can invite connections now to the page. So you can grow your company's following on LinkedIn by inviting your personal connections to follow the page. So what this means is you may, as a brand, want to let various different people in your company have access to that LinkedIn page as an admin so they can invite their friends, because many of their friends are probably realtors, right? Again, this is more of a B2B site than a B2C site, but that doesn't mean that we can't reach people who are going to buy houses on this site. So, or if you're a You know, a lumber company, I know we have Judy Donnell here with 84 Lumber today. It'd be a fantastic way for 84 Lumber to increase their following with builders. So invite your connections, you know, get other people on your team to invite their connections. I thought that was really cool. Then you can now post to your page or your profile from the homepage. And that's new. If you're just on the homepage of LinkedIn and you start posting, you have a drop down that allows you to choose who you are. So if you're like me, I can choose to be myself or one of about 20 companies that I have access to their pages. And it makes it so super easy because I don't have to go to the page. Although I will always say after you post, you might want to go to the page and make sure it looks right and that it went to the right page, because all this technology doesn't always work correctly or the way we think it's going to. The other thing they've added, and I think this is very recent and maybe in relation to all of us using Zoom and all these other platforms, you can now go live on LinkedIn. So it allows individuals or organizations to broadcast. Now, the interesting thing about it, it's obviously still in some sort of beta because you actually have to go put in an application to be considered to go live on LinkedIn. And it is quite the application. I looked at it yesterday and thought, wow, that's going to take some thought. I don't want to have to think that hard. I'll do it later. So that was interesting. You can create an event. Your event can include a virtual broadcast. So your business can hold an event on LinkedIn. They've added that. It's really cool. And then, of course, something we're not doing as an industry that I think might be really successful, again, especially, you know, B2B or reaching out to, you know, those agents that follow you, you can promote your LinkedIn page posts. So just like promoted posts on Facebook, you can promote them on LinkedIn and you can run ads there too. So again, I'd love to know if we have builders running ads on LinkedIn or any of our associates running ads and how that's going. You know, let me know and let me know how you're using LinkedIn. Oh, and at the very bottom of the screen, you can see I yet again wrote another blog post. So if you want any of these LinkedIn tips, I have a blog post that you can go to and find out all the latest, greatest, everything I mentioned here, plus a lot more. So let me know how you're doing on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Carol.
Absolutely.
Really, some new material here. I love it. So, Leah, I'm going to shift to you. Is there a change in how we should not just engage with customers, but what are the leading questions? What are the discovery questions?
That's a great question. And I think whether you're an online sales counselor or a site agent, getting the lead for the first time, it's important to build rapport and find out what people's pain points are. Okay, especially now we've got a lot of people, we've seen traffic increase a lot on our websites. And so when people actually inquire, the questions we want to ask, we want to make sure we're really using our listening skills. What's really bringing them out? It's always been that way. You know, we've always said you need to have 2 ears to listen and 1 mouth to speak. I mean, that is about, so when you're re-engaging or engaging people, you should be finding out what it is that's drawing them in to inquire, because they're asking you a question first. And the real thing also is to look at what avenue they're inquiring through. Like whether it's they're asking you a question through social media, are they asking you a question through maybe a live chat? Are they asking you a question through, you know, are they getting in contact with you through a form on their website or even by text? So the discovery questions that you're using are going to be applicable to the method of which they've contacted you. I want to throw it out there because I could sit there and give you a million different questions to ask. Who out there, builders out there, salespeople out there, what sort of questions are you asking to engage? If you can type in the chat, or where do you feel like you're getting hung up? Because that's how we can really kind of discover what questions are going to be the most important. Anybody out there want to throw something out there for a question that they, or how they're trying to get past that initial engagement? Because I have a few if you don't, but yeah, I'm not seeing anything. So what you want to do is you don't want to drill into people as you engage. You want to put out there open-ended questions and really find out what is it that's bringing them to you today? Once they start to communicate with you that way, then you're going to be able to know the next questions to ask. And I always say, make sure you're going a few whys deep, because if you ask a question like, are you looking for a home with 4 bedrooms? Or they say they're looking for a 4-bedroom home. You want to find out how they want to use that space. Is it because they actually need bedrooms? Do they actually need something more like office space? Those are going to be questions you engage. But a big one is always going to be timeline right now. So timeline is going to be important, because that's how you know whether to direct them towards those quick move-in homes of yours or the building process. And oftentimes they think their timeline is one thing, but when they realize how many options they have, they may shift that timeline in order to get what they really want. I don't know if anybody else wants to throw in on this engaging questions. I know this was something that Kimberly was really going to dig into, and she's going to do a video later that's her take on this sort of stuff. So
yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, Leah. Because Kimberly couldn't be with us, this is something that she was really passionate about. This slide, she had a lot of information. And just to ensure that you get that, she is going to send a separate video out to the group so that they can hear her input on this. So Leah, let's stick with you for a moment. Your online sales counselors. How should a builder, how should a marketing firm be caring for and providing support to their online sales counselors?
And that's one of my favorite questions, because right now you have 2 different things happening to online sales counselors. Some of our online sales counselors are plowed under with new leads. They're getting so much engagement through their live chat, through phone calls, and through emails that they're barely keeping it together. So having some ways to automate these, not depersonalize them, but automate the process, whether it's through CallRail, whether it's through your CRM being used to its fullest. A lot of times when we don't have a lot of leads, we do a lot of things manually. So you really need to step up and figure out the ways in which you can automate that still create a personalized follow-up. But some of those OSCs, it may be time to grow their team. So you as a builder, or as whoever is supporting, if you're the VP of marketing or the VP of sales supporting your online sales counselor, you need to give them some grace if they're this busy, and you need to be checking in with them and see if they need help, because they don't often ask for help. They don't often want to come up and say, I need help. Okay, and then there's the other side of the equation where maybe they're not generating a lot of leads like they used to. They're not getting those leads. And even though lead generation starts with your marketing, they always take it on as one of their biggest responsibilities. And so they feel like they tend to believe that it's their fault if they're not getting enough leads to try to convert. So it's important to have a strong communication between the marketing department, the marketing agencies, and your online sales counselor to see where is traffic coming from, and what ways can we create more calls to action. Because I'll tell you, a lot of builder websites you look at, you can't even tell they have online sales counselors. You don't see any personal presence. So we need to be putting up those calls to action about booking virtual tours, or asking questions, or videos of our online sales counselors saying, I'm here to help. So all of those things now are going to be so much more important in supporting our online sales counselors moving forward. And if traffic continues in the direction it's going, then we're going to need to look at adding to our teams, or adding those important tools, which I'm sure some of those tools Melissa's going to talk about when we get to her section of questions. But really, and this is where some of the statistics, if you look in our chat, you'll see that Kevin provided some great statistics on the Matterport tours, and how much time people are spending on Matterport tours, how much time people are spending on interactive floor plans. And that's all really important stuff, so that you know that people are engaging with your website, and you have calls to action from those points on your website, so that while they're playing around with that Matterport, if they want to ask a question, they can. So all of that stuff is going to be really important. Thank you, Kevin, from Outhouse for giving us some great statistics. Please look at that. He said, just to read these, our Matterport views increased 390% over March and 190% over pre-COVID averages. And then he said the IFPs, which if you're not into the initials, the interactive floor plans, increased views 161% over pre-COVID averages. So people are out there, they're on your website, and we just need to be able to provide support to get them to inquire. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Leah, that was great. I think it's really important that, you know, not being one of you, being more, being on the mortgage side, but being more of a buyer. I'll give you a great example, a real life example. A couple of nights over the last couple of weeks, I have been on Zillow. I have been at various builder sites because I personally am planning the next phase of my life. You know, I'll have all the children out of the house. Where do I want to go? It's almost like, wow, I could go anywhere I want because I'm fortunate enough that my job is a national job and I can be anywhere. So I've been looking at homes in Texas. I've been looking in Delaware, South Carolina, Denver, and I will tell you, I spend a lot more time on the websites that are user friendly, that perhaps have a chat person pop up and ask me a question, that enable me to view their floor plans, maybe take a virtual tour on them. I quickly leave the websites that don't give me the information I want. I get frustrated is what I get as a consumer. So I think that's real, you know, as a consumer, really great advice. So Melissa, let's have you join this party. Hi, thanks for being our special guest. And, you know, I'm hearing traffic's up when you talk about the virtual world, looking at websites, traffic's up on these websites. How do we know? Are these buyers serious? Are they someone like me that actually is serious about planning, maybe not buying in the next 6 months, but certainly buying in a year? How serious are these buyers?
Yeah.
And how do we know?
Yeah, thank you. So we track, and we've tracked it for 10 years, but since kind of the world shifted kind of that third week in February or so, we've been tracking you know, kind of the Google search index that we run and monitor that kind of monitors consumer sentiment. Are they shopping for new homes? Are they interested in new homes? Are they typing in new home terms? We track that, and then we track traffic to the sites that we run for the industry, and then hundreds of websites that we run for builders. And we kind of triangulate all of that, right, to come up with kind of a consumer sentiment and number. And we've been blown away. I mean, we would love, you know, we love the good news, but we almost have kind of been pinching ourselves every week. For the first 4 weeks of this, you know, situation we find ourselves in, it was going down, right? It was kind of going down, you know, and I don't think anybody was too surprised. You know, we were kind of like, we knew our own lives. We were just trying to figure out how we're going to get groceries and toilet paper and take care of the kids and work. And, you know, life was crazy, and our businesses were upside down too. What's fascinating in the last 4 weeks, it's been steadily climbing back up. And I mean, seriously, we meet every Monday because we kind of get all the numbers in through Sunday. Every week we go, are you sure? And we go question our data guys, like going, you sure? You sure that's up? But at this point, it is up 11% week over week. So kind of the previous week to the last week, week ago Friday. I'll have more numbers on Monday. It's up 11% week over week. More important, it is up 5% year over year. So just kind of let that sink in. You know, when you look at, we were going and blowing January, February this year, we were like, woohoo, you know, this is awesome. Then the bottom fell out, and then we were kind of all feeling sorry for ourselves and going, oh, this is gonna be a horrible year. I think there was PTSD from 2008 where we kind of all just went, oh, we can't do this again. And I think half of us went, can we just retire? Like, seriously, that would just be so much easier than going through this pandemic. What's interesting, you know, because then the next logical question is what you actually asked is, are they serious? Are they real people? Or they just have nothing better to do? They're really, really serious. What we saw on the websites was not only was the traffic up, but the engagement and the conversion metrics of that, of people to, identifiable, trackable action. So people clicking, people filling out lead forms, people calling, people doing those kind of CTAs, that conversion was up as much as 70%, which for those of you in the digital world, which most of you are, it's impossible to get that much conversion uplift. You're a genius if you can do that. So it's nothing anybody did. It was just a sign that these people are incredibly engaged. And then the other thing, kind of piece that I can add to that, we have a kind of a concierge contact center that doesn't work on behalf of a specific builder, but kind of works on behalf of our websites that we run to check in with our consumers to make sure they're getting what they need. Because unfortunately, and I'm hoping this pandemic will help us, 60% of our calls have gone unanswered historically, right? And we're not always great at jumping on those email leads, right? Which is why Leah exists in this world, to browbeat them into doing that. So we have a contact center who reaches out, to a good portion of those people just to say, hey, did you get what you need? Did you find a house? Do you need help? And a lot of what they do is just help people get connected because somehow that process didn't follow up. But we had them survey these people at the same time, extremely interested. Their biggest, challenge is they just need confidence that they can do it, right? So they want to move, they want a new home, they have the means to do it, they're employed, right? So all the indicators are good. And it's especially strong, obviously, kind of that entry level as opposed to move up, which has a different challenge, but incredibly engaged, but they do have angst, right? So they do have, just concerns on, well, how would I buy a house right now? I can't physically go see it perhaps, or I'm nervous about going to see it. How do I do that? So, just to kind of put that question to bed, these folks are extremely engaged and motivated. In fact, I think we've actually lost some of that, kind of looky-loo. The other important piece I'll throw in is the shift in the pattern over 24 hours has drastically changed. Because we used to see, when you studied traffic, what you knew is people were shopping for homes at work, like kind of in that lunch-ish period, right? Or probably when they're supposed to be working, right? They're on their desktop, they're searching, and then we would see a surge kind of in the evenings before they go to bed. Everything has shifted. When you think about your own personal life, it's all shifted. So what we've seen is traffic has shifted by 1 hour across the board. So everybody is getting up an hour later and starting their day an hour later. And I don't know if that's because they don't have commute time, or we're depressed, we drank too much wine the night before, we can't get out of bed. I don't know, but it's shifted by about an hour. And this is confirmed by kind of the chatbots that we have, and it's confirmed by traffic and all of that. The other piece is the proportion of traffic of people searching in those weird, odd hours has really picked up. And that gets something that Leah was saying, we don't necessarily have staff sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning or at 10 o'clock at night, ready to answer those calls. And to your point, Kellyanne, you want it now. You're like Veruca from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's like, I want to know this answer now. So if your website can't give it to me and I have a question, I can't get it answered, I get frustrated and I move on. And by the way, that was pre-pandemic, right? That was way before all of this, craziness. So I think, how do we support that? How do we support our OSCs, as Leah mentioned, but how do we support these customers? They finally get the kids in bed and they finally have time to think about, ugh, this house is really too small and I know it like I didn't know it before. Now I have time to shop, but you need to be open and available for me.
Great. So I'm going to stick with you, Melissa. When you think about resale versus new construction, how do we take share back?
Oh, to me, this is like the most exciting silver lining. I know people are like, what silver lining? Like, what are you talking about? I think this is just such a huge opportunity, because when you look at what happened to us kind of in 2008, 2009, going into that, we used to historically have 15 to 20% market share. So new homes were 15 to 20% of all new homes or home sales. After, that little mess we went through, we've never regained that. We kind of vary, 8 to 10%, varies by market. So every day, used homes are beating us like, exponentially. And when you look what's happening in the climate, the used home, and I do use the word used, I don't say resale. It's used, it has toenails in the carpet, and it's somebody else's discarded dream, just don't get me started. But when you look at it, what's happening is there are very few used home listings on the market. So, and it's a variety of things. One, people who had their homes in the market are pulling them because who wants strangers coming into your house right now? Like, we don't even want to be around strangers in the grocery store. I have like tremendous anxiety. So you don't want people coming in your house. You don't have any place to go while they're touring through your house, so it's very uncomfortable. So they're pulling, or they think it's just not a good time to sell. So they're pulling used homes off the market. And when you look at kind of the opportunity of new, it just so speaks to this, pandemic that we're in. New homes are clean. New homes have a home office. Sometimes they have 2 home offices. They have space. They have a backyard. They have air. We're seeing a tremendous flight of people wanting to get out of urban and going to suburban, which for most of our high volume production builders, that's really good news, right? So I think there's this opportunity because let's say, we see these headwinds and maybe fewer homes are sold this year, but what if we actually took more share and new homes actually went up? And I think there is a tremendous opportunity for that. We don't know how long that's going to last, right? We're watching this every week, like some soap opera and drama. We're actually watching it every day. But for right now, we should be like little squirrels out there just stuffing our cheeks with homes and selling every home, that we can. We have an opportunity, and it would be so great if we could come out of this with that silver lining.
Great, thank you. Melissa, that's interesting because we, on the mortgage side of things, appraisers are not wanting to go into resale homes to do appraisals. So, the agencies, all the mortgage companies have had to scramble to, make adjustments. Whereas with new construction, they're going. Unless, of course, it's a state like Pennsylvania where it's shelter in place and some of them aren't comfortable with it. But, there truly is a difference. So next question, Melissa. We talked about this earlier about how, about buyer expectations, and Leah talked a lot about it. How are you viewing buyer expectations?
I think nothing's changed. In one way, nothing's changed. We have to meet buyers and consumers where they are. And I would say as an industry, we've fallen short of that for quite some time. And it's kind of an analogy that we like to use is, and it is funny, like builders are coming out of the woodwork going, hey, that stuff, that digital stuff you told me about, I think I really need that now. I think you were right. Like, oh, okay. But I think you can think of your solutions and services. A lot of times we would present them and nobody ever looked at, an online design center or a Matterport or VR tour. Nobody ever looked at them and said, oh, yuck. Oh, who would want that, right? I mean, everybody goes, oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that would be neat. Yeah, someday, maybe when we get our options master cleaned up, or, let's do a 3-year IT initiative and rehaul everything, right? Because they were kind of vitamins. They were like nice to have, but nobody felt like their business was at risk if they didn't have them. And I think what's happened now, a lot of those things that we thought were vitamins, they're painkillers. Like if we can't take someone through an options process virtually, it's going to be really hard to keep them in the sale and even show them what we have to offer to get them to contract. So I think consumers have long been frustrated with us, with the lack of virtual content, the way to connect, the fact that most builders going into this could not take text leads, right? Wouldn't text with the customer because it doesn't go in their CRM system. How would we track that? Whose cell phone would we use? Freeze up, IT initiative. I think consumers have long been frustrated with us. And sometimes I think pre-pandemic, it was a miracle every time we sold a home and kept a buyer through that process. Nobody ever came out going, woo, that was super fun. I want to do that again. Like, yikes. It's kind of like childbirth, right? It takes several years before you're willing to do that again. You forget. So I think a lot of what we're seeing ourselves have to do, we should have been doing anyway. And it is about meeting consumers where they're at. It's just today, our lives depend on it. Our businesses really do depend on it. And I think that's probably the shift that we're seeing.
So how do you see the customer journey post-COVID? Or even like right now, what does that journey for the customer look like, Melissa?
Yeah, I think you have to kind of step back. And, many builders have been doing customer journeys, yay, and they've been kind of marching down this path, and they have a head start, right? If you don't even know what a customer journey map looks like, okay, go watch a webinar really fast. But customer journey mapping is really putting yourself in your customer's shoes and thinking through at every phase of the process. So kind of this awareness phase, you were talking about you're going on sites looking at homes as they're evaluating. And you actually have to think of their process, the limitations of your current process, what their pain points are and their fears. And those are a little bit different than they were before. They've always been scared to buy a new home. A mortgage is always scary. Trying to pick options is overwhelming. So we're going into this with a lot of friction points. And a lot of these are just exacerbated, and you have to go through every stage of your process and think about from the customer's perspective where they're at today. Have you modeled your business to meet them? And again, hats off, many of the builders that got out there super fast, Lennar and Century and, some of the local guys just got out there super fast. They didn't have a magic silver bullet. They didn't suddenly press a button and you can buy a house virtually online, soup to nuts, all the way through the process. But what they said was, we're open and we can do this. We have it figured out. Now, it may not be the most elegant piece every step of the way, right? And our salespeople may not be good on Zoom yet, right? But we've got your back. We've got it figured out. And I think you just have to think through every step of that process and also be willing to go, okay, yes, if I had a year, I would do it Nirvana. I don't have a year. I have a week at best, right? So just really rethink that.
So I have a question for the entire group. Curious if you view a customer, do you think we're going to have more customers that want to buy spec homes and want a quick move in? Or do you think that the customer thought process around new construction might change for it to be a longer? Do you think that will be impacted in any way?
Wow, that's a great question. I think my answer would be yes. So I think we're going to have a lot of people who want to buy spec homes just because it's, the quick way they can buy. And, we're seeing that happen right now. The only houses that are selling really quickly right now are the specs in most places. But I also think that higher end customer who can afford more house is going to think more seriously about customizing or personalizing. Because actually, I think Jay McKenzie asked a great question. You're living in your house all the time now. What would you change about it? And from my perspective, there's 2 or 3 things I would change about my house. But one of them is my mud room, which is really, it's just not quite right for being a farmhouse. I would have changed that a long time ago. But the thing from COVID that's really come to my attention is it would be really nice to have a better, like secondary storage facility, maybe a secondary pantry with a deep freezer and some things like that I've kind of got bits and pieces of them here, but I think people are going to think about things like sinks with foot pedals so you don't have to touch anything to wash your hands. The touch-free soap dispensers. Several of the architects we work with are seeing trends like this already. I mean, people are going to think about their HVAC units and upgrading those. They already are. So I think the answer is kind of yes, and I think it's going to be divided by price point.
Interesting.
And I also think, it's kind of like how the divorce rate is shooting up now that people are spending too much time together. The dissatisfaction with people's homes is probably shooting up as well. Just that what is it? Familiarity breeds contempt. And I think that may be happening with people in their homes. And so I think that for those who really were thinking about moving already, they're going to jump quicker. They're going to have hit their wall of their pain points and be like, okay, what can I move into quickly that's going to satisfy my needs? And if the spec homes have those things, they're going to move quickly. And like Carol said, I definitely think people who never thought of moving before, now they're going to start grinding on this idea of what do I want? And what do I really want moving forward? And especially if this is going to be my forever next home, what can I not live without moving forward? So I love those ideas that Carol said, because I know a lot of people want to be hands-free and so much and not touch. We never knew how much stuff we touched until COVID-19 came around, and now I think we have a whole society of very what is it?
Germophobic people.
Germophobic and I can't, the word's not coming to me.
Yeah, but lots of phobias. And what's interesting? I think that actually kind of weird that I think the industry, we just came off of IBS just a couple of months ago. What a different world it was right then. And I love IBS. I love that show floor. It is like candy store to me. And I absolutely came home saying, I want that refrigerator that I could tell to pour me a glass of water. I'm like, I need to have that. So it felt, maybe the that side of things, the appliance world seems to be ahead of all of us, right? And now how relatable those products are in today's world. Thoughts on that? Or it's interesting.
Yeah, so kind of back on that question of quick move-ins and specs. I think what Carol said is true. People are kind of gobbling this up. I think we may have a challenge though, in that many builders are not doing as many, right? They're kind of pulling back on that. So again, consumer desire versus kind of where we're at. So I think given that, all the more reason we're going to have to figure out how to help them through that kind of design process. And again, held true before, holds true now. Customization and choice is just part of what we want in our DNA. And as a society, we're going more to choice and customizing our tennis shoes and everything else. But there is a rational, easy, affordable way to do choice, in terms of packaging. And don't give them 150,000 options. Give them 10 packages, right? That still make it my home and my choice. But we're going to have to figure out how to do that process pretty efficiently, because at some point here, we're going to run out of those, quick move-ins and spec homes pretty fast. And I do think, I was laughing. I mean, I think out of this, we're going to see divorces. We're going to see babies in about 9 months or so, or, maybe at this point, 8 months. But both of those things create more households. So as new home builders, we will win. It's good. And you for mortgages, you will win. There'll be more mortgages. So, I think everybody's really evaluating, what does home mean? And how do I optimize? And, you mentioned IBS, and I just kind of cringed all of a sudden. I went, oh my gosh, I hugged so many people. We shared drinks. I don't even want to say this, but now we're past the quarantine period. We were hugging people from that town in China where this originated. We were looking at some obscure fireplace things, and we're hugging and exchanging cards and pamphlets. We burned the pamphlets. But, that's going to change, and the impact to us in our, industry. What will it look like as we have our events going forward? So it's just going to be interesting to see how we all change as we
I
go
agree with
forward.
you. So I want to hit some of the questions during the open forum that we have in the chat room that have gone unanswered. Hi, Judy. Oops. So Judy Danell has a question. How about the home rental market? Are more people looking at this with or without option to buy? Anybody?
I can chime in on that one. As far as rentals, I think that the home rental market is going to continue to be substantial, if not for the reason that we've had so many people lose their jobs. And I don't know how quickly those companies are going to hire people back. And I think people, because even if they get hired back, they're going to be less likely to want to buy, or they may not have the credit score after this. So I think the rental market and that rent to buy market are going to remain very hot. And we see builders that were banking on it before this even happened. They were building to rent them versus building to sell them. So yeah, and I don't know if anyone has a differing opinion, but that's my belief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have another question here from Robert Gerstad. Are there any tricks to increasing your appraised value so customers can actually afford the touchless options? Will there be augmentations to the appraisal process? So I'll take this from the mortgage perspective and then you all can chime in. Here's the thing I'll tell you about the appraisal process. The most important, when you get to the mortgage side of any real estate transaction, the number one most important thing is the collateral, because the mortgage is on the collateral. So appraisals will always be the cornerstone of any decision, any mortgage decision. I will tell you, when you're in a very volatile situation like we are in today with COVID-19, the collateral becomes even more important because there are so many unknowns. Are homes going to lose value in certain marketplaces? Melissa, I believe, mentioned seeing buyers go into the suburbs again. So what does that mean to the real estate values in the big cities that have been on fire for the last several years? Therefore, the appraisal is the most critical piece. And then obviously second, the credit profile of the borrower themselves. But another thing I'll share with you is, with COVID-19, the agencies have made some adjustments to how they'll accept appraisals. So I talked about in new construction that the appraiser is not afraid to go inside the house. It hasn't been occupied. The builder's taking all kinds of precautions to keep the house clean and sterile. But the agencies are allowing, in some instances, for resales to do what we call desk appraisals or drive-by appraisals. Okay, I think that's okay for resale, but I caution the new construction industry to embrace that because of what you all were just talking about, options. Because if you have an appraiser, first of all, new construction doesn't utilize MLS. Very few builders put their homes in the MLS listing. So if an appraiser is going to stay home and utilize information that they find on the internet or in the MLS listings to do the appraisal, chances are you're not going to get the appraised value you want on new construction. Then add to that the layer of options. And especially as you get into your mid to higher end home sales in new construction, oftentimes there can be a great deal of options, and the appraiser can't see those options from the desks like we're sitting at here. And are they really going to read the 150-page contract for new construction that exists? Likely not. That's not a knock on any appraisers, but it's just the reality. So I think that there already have been adjustments for COVID-19, but the fact that collateral is number one in making any mortgage decision, that's not going to change. I hope that helps you, Robert. Dina asks, is there a way to know if they are actually going to the homes or not? Boy, has this turned into the Kelly show? I usually don't answer this many questions. Yes. because if you're talking about appraisals, Dina, yes, you can tell. And you can tell because of the photos that accompany that appraisal, the interior photos.
The other
Let's
thing
see.
now with geofencing and retargeting, we can kind of do some of that tracking as well.
Yeah, that's very true. Looking to see if there are other questions here.
There was one from Pamela Hendricks, if she's still on. She was saying that she said that her online sales counselors sometimes forget to ask if they already have an agent, and our site agents get upset. The OSC gets the buyer's story and key points, but the handoff is tough now. We are more busy than ever. So there is back to that kind of support. You need to support your OSCs and make sure that you're not cutting corners on those handoffs. One of the things that I always teach with online sales counselors, and it really should be ingrained in an online sales counselor, is to find out if somebody's working with an agent. It just needs to be part of the very beginning, some of those first questions when you're engaging with them. And it's a very, very easy one to ask, is to say, hey, as we get started talking, just let me know if you're working with an agent so that I can pre-register them with you. And that way I can let my agents know that you're working with someone, and it's just a courtesy. We want to make sure that everybody's getting credit for who they are and that no one feels like their buyer is being stolen. So I would say, if your OSCs are forgetting to ask that, ingrain in them. They need to ask that upfront very, very soon. And it should be like, if they create a checklist even of, have you asked these questions before you do the handoff for the appointment, okay? And that appointment handoff is really important right now because some people are handing off virtual appointments. Some people are handing off personalized, still in-person one-on-one appointments in the models. And we need to make sure that if they're gonna go visit the model, that their agent is with them or knows about it at least, if we're not allowing agents there. So it all depends on what, and I'm sure Kimberly, I miss her. If she were here, she would have some wonderful insights to you on how builders are doing that handoff process and when agents are involved and those sorts of things. So she just would have that dialed in. But as from an online sales standpoint, we need to always make sure we make our handoff smooth by including all that information. If you need to create a checklist because it's so busy and so different now, create a checklist of all the important points you want to pass on from online sales to site sales for the appointment.
Yeah. And I think, Leah, that's a really good point. It's one of those things you've got to rethink the process, because for a lot of builders, they require the agents to show up in person with their customer in order to register and kind of claim that customer, and they can't do that today. So when you talk about friction and angst, there's a lot of friction and angst with the agents. And I've seen some builders really step up and create kind of online registration forms. They kind of message to the agents. But it's just thinking through, that older process pre-COVID just doesn't work in today's environment. And you're right, the OSCs are kind of stuck on the front lines with that tension.
Yeah, so it sounds like some scripting is needed for the online sales counselors there. In some places, I know that we utilize scripting in our call centers for mortgage. Well, I think we need to wrap. It is the top of the hour, and I just want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Carol, Leah, Melissa, and Kimberly. We miss you, but you can listen to the recording and then you can judge us and tell us if we did okay without you. We wish everyone well. Please be safe, be healthy, take care of yourself, and kiss and hug your families. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.
And send positive energy to Kimberly's horse.
Yes, absolutely.
Have a great Friday.
Happy Friday.